Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of title tracks, looking at songs that share their name with the album they're on with a triple threat. We actually have a title that shares its name with an album that shares its name with a band. We're looking at Angel Witch on all three fronts. I think this is pretty interesting. I don't pick these tracks. They're randomly picked for Friday. Um, and so not only do we get to end this double parallel with a triple parallel, but we also get to conclude the week that started with Bell Witch with Angel Witch. We got like a witchy thing going on with bookends, and that was like an 80-minute track, and this is 3 minutes. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of really cool parallels here. I just let's dive into it, see what's going on. Looking at Angel Witch by Angel Witch on Angel Witch. Okay, my first question is, when did this come out? Love the bass presence. Big group vocal right there. Oh man, we're just pushing through this real quick. Alright, we got an extension of this idea. Interesting. I like the guitar wailing on the side. Okay. Interesting decision there. We're gonna fade out on this? Yeah, classic idea. Alright. Yeah, we got some classic heavy metal right there. Not really a lot to dig into. It's very straightforward, but there's a couple of things I want to touch on first. Before we hit the lyrics, wrap this one up. I think it's gonna be a short video. First of all, shred. Right from the start, we have these rising and falling 16th note patterns on the guitars, while we have these staccato accented hits everywhere else. Really grab your attention right from the start. Fantastic way to dive into this. Um, and then it's just a blistering pace. We don't have too long with the intro, maybe 15 seconds or so. And then we're in the verse. And then we're in the chorus. And then our transition out of the chorus is 4 bars. It doesn't even feel like a complete idea because it feels like it wants to repeat and have a different resolution on the end of the repeat. But we don't get that. We get like half of an idea back into the verse, back into the chorus. Then we get that full idea, the full 8 bars. And that takes us into the bridge. And I think we were only like 70, 80 seconds into the track here. Granted, this was right around the halfway point, but the fact that we ran through 2 verses and 2 choruses in such a short amount of time, I mean, just shows that they're in quite a rush to get this song done with, and some of that comes from the tempo. It's definitely a faster track, but the there's basically no transitions between sections, and the sections themselves are relatively short, looking at just 16 bars each, give or take. And so, normally I talk about songs that I think are paced too slowly, where we spend too much time in sections. In fact, I think I've had that criticism this week, yesterday even, right? No, Wednesday. Um, One, two, yeah, yeah. Wednesday with Zappa. I felt that some sections stuck around too long. I kind of reversed that by the end once I kind of figured out what the song was supposed to be doing, but that was still a criticism I had during the reaction of it. This is the opposite. This is poorly paced in the fact that it's too fast. We're leaving these sections too quickly and they have no time to leave an impression. By the time the song's over, I barely had any chance to connect with anything. And from a critical standpoint, they were shallow enough that I could understand what each of the sections were doing. But from a casual standpoint, I would have liked to enjoy some of these just a little bit longer. In a sense, it almost feels like this was rushed. Um, in that it feels like they're just trying to end the song. And interestingly, the back half of the track feels a bit longer than the first half. I don't know if that's because we get back to the chorus and I'm like, oh, okay, I've heard this chorus a few times. I'm kind of over it. Or if there's something else going on. But yeah, the back half felt like it took forever. Man, we get up to the bridge. I'm like, how do we get here so fast? And then from that point on, I'm like, why isn't this song over? I don't know. It's a really interesting track. I think this is yeah, this is the first thing most people would have heard from this group. It's the first track off of their first album. Came out in 1980, December. Might as well be an 81 album. Wow. I was not expecting this given what I've heard. Maybe the rest of the album's a little different, but it has a 31 ranking for 1980 on Rate Your Music. Would not expect that. Let's see what else we got going on here. The bass is phenomenal for this. I don't know if it's because I am. What would be the opposite of uh, spoiled? When you listen to something and it's so good and it spoils you on other things. This would be like the opposite, where so much heavy metal has kind of ruined my appreciation for bass and metal because it just, especially earlier metal, is just never there. There's lots of bass presence here. The bass is actually doing some really cool stuff. Some of it is pedal tone. About half of every bar is just playing the pedal tone, but the second half of every bar is a nice little run. Bum 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 ba da 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 dun 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 da dee 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 da dun 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 dun, right? So we have these pedal tones, but we have these nice licks that take us to the next one, and they have this really nice arch to them, just like our opening shreddy line. What is it with rising and falling patterns with this group? Although angel witch, an angel is something that is pristine, comes from the heavens. This would be, rising into the purity of angelicness, and witches are typically more occult, and that would be falling back down to the earthly. Maybe. I don't know. I could be reading into that. When we hit the lyrics, we'll see what's going on there. But this idea of being part of both the low and the high and constantly moving between them kind of fits with uh, the visualization of an angel witch. So yeah, the bass is just present all throughout, and that's what it does all the time. Pedal tones, rising, falling to the next pedal tone, rising, falling to the next pedal tone. It's neat. It drives the song. It keeps a lot of energy going, as if the song needed more of that. And it's very present. It has a nice tone to it. It works well. It's not overpowering. It works well with what the guitars are doing, both musically and production wise. In fact, this is a very clean production. I think this comes off of, yeah, it's their 30th anniversary edition. I don't know if it got remastered for that. It does not say. But this is a fantastic production for a band's first album in 1980. Maybe it's just me. This feels too good. I'm thinking it's a remaster, but I never put things past bands. You never know what kind of circumstances people land themselves in. Um, the drums are solid all the way through. Nothing too technical, nothing too impressive. Just really hammering home the pulse. Fantastic metronome style drumming. No fluctuation, just real solid on the beat rhythm. And you can't fault a good drummer like that. And then the guitars shift between two sides. They have flourishy showmanship stuff, and then they also have chords, power chords, just kind of holding out at the bottom, sort of like what the pedal tone is doing, or what the bass is doing the pedal tone, just expanding that to a full chord in the guitars. And we primarily hear this in the chorus, which is basically just chords for 3 bars and then a little flourish in bar 4 to bring us back to those same chords. It is simultaneously very simple music, but the flourishes add just enough technicality and showmanship to it all that I find it to be a really nice medium point between showing off too much and playing too simplistically. I kind of wish there was a little bit more melody writing in the guitar, but I'm also trying to remember 1980s, what heavy metal was doing at the time. Trying to keep all this in mind because, that's important. There's definitely bands who are going to look towards the future and play stuff that's, well, might not even be popular at the time. They might be completely glossed over and only appreciated decades later, but the idea is that most bands are going to play what's popular at the time. They're going to replicate and expand upon what was influential on them. So it's not a good place to expect bands to be pushing towards the future in that broad of strokes, I suppose. Um, so then I think the two things I want to talk about next are what deviates from this first chorus pattern. We cut the tempo down quite a bit in our bridge. It's not halftime feel. It's a tempo cut. Probably dropping it to about 70% of where we're at for most of the track. We shift to exclusively chords. And that's it. Everything else pretty much sounds the same. The bass is still doing pedal note stuff. The guitars are doing their power chords. Drums are just holding down the time. I thought this was an interesting decision, primarily because I think I'm picturing this against later metal music. I don't know. To me, the bridge is usually a new section that leads into or is exclusively a guitar solo. And when we didn't get a guitar solo and we got more of a modern bridge, something that we would see in pop music or even metalcore, even a lot of radio rock these days, is that we just have a brand new section, usually with a large deviation. So if the song is driving, we cut the tempo back. If the song is a bit slower, we might ramp it up a little bit. Something to juxtapose what the rest of the song is doing. That's exactly what happens here. We get rid of all the flourish out of the guitar, we get rid of all the speed, and we just kind of take it down a notch for a second. And in that way, it felt very modern to me. Though, again, I might just be comparing this to what metal became later in the 80s and 90s, and this was actually quite common for the time. I'm not sure exactly what metal was like in the late 70s, early 80s. But interestingly, we did get a guitar solo. It just came after our reprised chorus, after our third chorus there. Then we get a guitar solo with the chorus to wrap the song up. And this guitar solo is very similar to a lot of the other stuff we had heard, flourishy wise or showmanship wise throughout the rest of the track. Very shreddy, very focused on faster technical playing. All in all, I feel like this is a pretty typical metal song. It has a couple of neat ideas in it that I wouldn't expect, but I also don't have a strong concept of the era to specifically say if they were doing things a little differently or not. But coming at it from somebody in the 2020s, it's what I would expect. If you tell me you're playing me an older metal song, this is exactly to the T what I'm gonna think of it. It's iterative in a lot of ways, though I'm not sure if it's iterative based on what came after it or not. It's interesting, though, that it feels very. What's the word I want? Hmm, that word is not coming to me, unfortunately. But it's exactly what I would expect. And through that, I'm curious why Angel Witch isn't a name I've heard before. Um, Everything here is competently played, and again, I don't know if it's a remaster, but the production is exceptionally solid. How did they slip through the cracks? I think is a question I want to ask. Is it possible that we just haven't looked that far back into the past on the channel yet? I also find it interesting that they had an 80 album, which was this 1980, and then they took a few years off, came back for an 85 and an 86, and then took 2 decades off and came back in 2012, and then they had a 2019 album. And now the 2019 album says it's heavy metal slash traditional doom. What? I'm kind of curious where they decided to take their sound. See, 2012 also says traditional doom. This one was heavy metal. 85 was heavy metal. 86 was heavy metal with some hard rock. And then they took 2 decades off and came back doing heavy metal slash doom. Interesting. I'm going to hit some lyrics and then we'll wrap this up. So the song seems to be about unrequited love, but by the second stanza and especially the third, sorry, not stanza, the third verse, we kind of reach a point where it feels kind of stalkery. It kind of moved past that unrequited love to, dude, she's not interested in you. You should probably stop. You're making a fool of yourself territory. Um, but the first stanza says, nobody else sees you the same way that I do. You fly high, you touch the sky, you're an angel I adore. But, why do you ignore me? The chorus is just, you're an angel witch. You're an angel witch. You're an angel witch. You're an angel witch. I don't remember what the actual melody was for the vocals. But yeah, that it's just that repeated over and over and over. And I kind of wish they would go in a little bit more detail about what the angel witch is. There's definitely a lot of witchy things in here. Flying high, touching the sky. I look out at night and see your shadow by the moon. Was there one more? Oh yeah, she walks through the forest. The forest seems to be where she is most comfortable at when he chases her. He says, "Why do you run away? I'd never hurt you." But she runs into the forest. So there's definitely this pagan occult kind of thing going on. I understand the witch side, but there is nothing in here that tells me anything about what the angel purpose is in the title. And I don't, unless angels are supposed to be, because like, I don't know, a perfect creature. You're everything I want out of a partner or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting to say the least. But yeah, that's pretty much it. One line even says, "The more love that I have for you, the more you fade away." So like he comes on stronger, and she just stops showing up to areas where he's at. And then at the end he says, "No, why do you run from me? I'd never hurt you." So yeah, like I said, kind of starts out as an unrequited love thing, and then just turns into straight up stalkery stuff, and that's the whole song. Yeah. Um, as far as tying themes together, I don't see anything here. We just have some lyrics and some pretty typical metal, and they're smashed together. I do think the urgency of the song matches the urgency and of the Angel Witch. To tie this in a different direction is that she's trying her best to flee this person, and the rising stress of seeing this person in their town or city or whatever, and constantly having to look over her shoulder to keep this, to make sure that she's not seen by this person, and the tension and anxiety of this ramping up the tempo of the song, just coming through at a blistering pace. I don't know, that's definitely reading into it, but those are my thoughts on Angel Witch's Angel Witch on the Angel Witch album from 1980. Let me know what your thoughts are. Did you enjoy it? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Put those thoughts down in the comments. Above the comment section in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, a link to my music, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We have two more videos coming out today, special selection and creator request. Both usually have really great suggestions in them, so be sure to check those out. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Going to get through a full album. I don't remember what it is this week, though. Oh, and for some reason, I don't even have it there. Well, I guess it's going to be a surprise. Uh, and we'll also have this live stream on Sunday for the patrons, and then Monday we'll be back with next week's theme, which is electronic dance music. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, 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 chicka, boom. I don't know. I'm excited for it though. We have very little techno on the channel, so it'd be a nice way to expand my horizons. I've listened to very little EDM. Yeah, so until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.